The WNBA regular season, just over a month old, but there's a new team in town, new faces, new competition out west with Golden State. We're going to talk about it all today, right here on Locked On Women's Basketball.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, friends. It is June 23rd, 2025. Congrats to the LSU baseball program. They secured the final NCAA title of the year in Omaha at the College World Series, and to all of the Thunder fans out there for a Game 7 victory last night in the NBA Finals. Championships make Mondays just a whole lot better. Hi, everybody. Missy Heidrick. Thank you for joining us here on Locked On Women's Basketball and for making it your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Well, the WNBA season is off and running, and we have dozens and dozens of storylines emerging from coast to coast. But one of the most intriguing ones so far is the one out in the Bay Area, the arrival of a new franchise in the W. Expansion has brought us the Golden State Valkyries. It's been some time since this league has expanded, and there is more to come in the near future. But we've got to talk about what is happening right here in the present. And to do all of that today with me, where this Golden State team is Hall of Fame journalist and a staple in the women's basketball landscape in the great state of California and beyond, my insanely talented colleague, Michelle Smith. Good morning, Michelle, from sunny California. Before we talk about some of the big headlines and storylines from the past weekend, especially in the WN and women's basketball in general, this is a new era in the Golden State franchise in this universe. But maybe just give me right off the bat, what's the vibe been like of having women's basketball back in the Bay Area?
Holy moly. That has been the vibe. Honestly, it has been more than in so many ways. You know, we knew when when they announced the Valkyries and started taking season ticket deposits, and they just shot through the roof. And you're looking at, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, 15,000, 20,000 season ticket deposits, that the interest and the excitement was certainly there. Mm-hmm. They rolled out this branding, these colors. I mean, honestly, do not underestimate the power of those colors that they chose, that black and that violet, like the brand and and the Valkyries brand and the stuff they built around it. And then, and all of this was before there was a player on a roster, right? They hired Natalie Nakase, first-time head coach. Ohema Nain is not familiar to a lot of Bay Area sports fans, right? That was not a name people knew. So it was a lot of excitement around the idea of having a WNBA team. And then this team shows up, and, through the expansion draft, you've got players still, not a lot of names people know, a lot of international talent, and the free agents in the spring, they stayed away. Like the big, there were not a ton of big free agent signings. The Valkyries left with money in their wallet. Like, okay, all right, we're going to make this work. And God, have they? I mean, we're talking about a 7-6 team at this point, right? So, yeah. But they are solidly in the playoff picture. Huh? They are playing a really good brand of basketball. Uh-huh. Natalie Nakase, if she is not in the conversation for Coach of the Year, I don't know what you're doing with your life. And I mean, honestly, and they have sold out 7 straight times, 18,000 people. And these are folks that are cheering at the right times, and I don't know, jeering at the right times when they perceive the call's bad or whatever. But the energy in that building is something that will buoy you through the entire summer. Honestly, it has been a spectacular debut in every way. I mean, expansion teams are not supposed to be this cohesive. They're not supposed to have such an identity already. Mm-hmm. And they have both of those things, and they're winning games.
Well, W's go a long way. And you mentioned that playoff picture. A couple other news and notes from this past weekend, just in general in the W. Jonquil Jones of the New York Liberty, she has out 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle injury. That was announced on Saturday. Makes a huge impact and difference for what happens with this New York Liberty squad. I think there's going to be a lot of consternation, some hand wringing to see when and where she can get back, and whether or not that even takes her out of the All-Star weekend, which will happen in mid-July. And keep your eyes on the fact that the Aces were finally able to get themselves back on the winning track. They beat they beat the Indiana Fever 89-81. Asia Wilson goes 34 minutes, 24 points. The Fever were up at half, couldn't finish it themselves. 5 aces in double figures. They had lost 5 out of their last 6 going into that. So they needed a much needed win. And wins are the one thing that I think that this Valkyrie team has been able to do. But I want to take a step back, and I kind of want to walk through sort of the underlying tone and tenor of bringing this franchise to Golden State in general. There had not been an expansion team in the WNBA since 2008, if I'm not mistaken.
17 years. Yep.
17 years ago. And you think about what that looked like. And I saw a very interesting article that was written in Forbes, which I thought was very well done, kind of talking about the financial picture and sort of the impact and what this looks like. Because you've got 2 owners that invested $50 million to be able to put this franchise into the WNBA orbit. But these are not just average Joe, I want to get into the mix of, I want to be part of professional sports. These guys know what it takes because they've built the Warriors franchise. That type of integration within women's sports and within the W, that can't be lost in this. It seems as though they did it right from the start.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The Warriors have been eyeing WNBA ownership for quite a long time. I remember at one point when Rick Welts was still with the Warriors, and he was one of the founding fathers of the W to begin with, and with Val Ackerman and that whole group. But Rick, I had a chance to talk to Rick. It was before one of the Warriors WNBA finals. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I was like, "When is it happening?" And he was like, "We want it. The timing needs to be right. It might have happened sooner if the league had A, been open to expansion, and B, COVID hadn't happened." But I think that the COVID situation really sets it back. The other thing that happened for the Warriors was the move to the Chase Center from Oakland. And that was their focus in the short term, was getting that move done. And then, they get the move done and then COVID hit. So I think for the Warriors, they've been like trying to game out when is the right time for this. And the league has been trying to game out when is the right time for expansion. So everybody figures out that this is the right time. But Joe Lacob, the Warriors owner, if you want to go into the Wayback Machine, was the owner of the San Jose Blazers in the ABL when the ABL started up first, right after the 1996 Olympics. And the ABL lasted 2 years-ish. And the WNBA, really took over that space. But Joe Lacob owned that team. I would sit across from Joe Lacob and his young family at Stanford women's games. He had courtside seats at Stanford Women during sort of that really, that sort of heyday years of those programs in the mid 90s. So he is, he's a guy who knows women's basketball, wants to be invested in women's basketball, and also has all of the pieces in place within their own franchise to be able to do this right. And they really did. And he could have, honestly, he could have picked a big name GM. He could have picked asked the GM to pick an owner with some name recognition. I mean, not that people don't know Natalie Nicase, but first time head coach. And they had a plan for this. And they got people in that front office who had international experience, who knew the international game well, who knew who the top international players were, and who understood that this is how you're going to build a franchise and a roster this first time. Over in the NWSL at Bay FC, which is the Bay Area's team, which is in its second season, they built with international talent, because when you're building a team and the established players in your league aren't sure that that's where they want to go yet, or they don't want to go to a franchise that's not going to win right away. You build with international talent. So these two franchises in the Bay Area have run a lot on parallel tracks from that perspective. But Natalie is a home run pick. And it's she has come in and she knows how they want to play, and she has coaches who will, coach. She's got a coaching staff that buys into that vision. She has players who came in who didn't know one another, who don't even speak the same language. They're speaking multiple languages in that locker room, and yet she's got them playing to an identity that's already been established. I mean, next year when the entire league gets thrown up in the air and everybody's a free agent, I can't imagine how many players are going to go, I like what's happening at Golden State. I like what Natalie Ducassi is doing, and I want to play in front of 18,000 people every night. Like, this could go really, really quickly. Joe Lacob said he wanted a title within 5 years. He might get one.
I think you are onto something. And if there is one thing in this, as we move forward into other expansion teams coming online in the W, it seems as though if you're going to take notes, this is the blueprint. This is how you got to do it. You got to be invested. You got to understand the system. Let's remember, it is a business, and you have to be able to manage that business in the right way. All right, in a moment, more with Michelle, because we're going to dive into this team, what makes them go in this first season in the WNBA. Well, a quick message from our friends at Olipop. It's a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda, but want something that supports their health. With just 2 to 5 grams of sugar, 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can, Olipop is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional soda, it's loaded with sugar, like 39 grams in a regular can of Coke, 44 grams in an old school orange Fanta. This flips the script with just a fraction of the soda, the artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for you. You can swap out your regular soda and help cut back on sugar while still getting the flavors that you like. If you grew up drinking soda or started when you were in college or when you get out in the workforce, now you've got a better alternative. So get a free can of Olipop. Just buy two cans in store, and they'll reimburse you for one. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find Olipop near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. Hi, everybody. Missy Heidrick. Welcome back to Locked On Women's Basketball, here with Michelle Smith. And we're talking about the growing strength of a brand new franchise in the WNBA. And they have done it not only with what's happening on the court, but also one of the things you mentioned at the very beginning, Michelle, I think was about branding. It's about fan engagement. It's about putting butts in the seats, and they have done that. Seems as though people were jonesing for something to happen in the Bay Area, and they have gotten that with this Valkyrie squad. Number 1 in the league in attendance. Their revenue projection for this first year, mind you, as it has been said, somewhere in the vicinity of $55 million, a number that doesn't even include league distributions from national media and sponsorship deals or income from maybe merchandise and all of the other streams that come in. And that would exceed estimates by places like Forbes magazine for what 8 teams have collected last season in the MLS, an established men's league. If this doesn't tell you that people are watching, seeing, and engaged in women's basketball, I don't know what does. As you said it, they want championships. What does the on-the-floor blueprint look like now with this Golden State squad?
I think it's so interestingly, right? There was a very early in the season, there was a conversation about their draft positioning for next year. And are they going to be too good? Right. And so, and they may end up being too good to end up landing one of those top draft picks. But in the scenario that we're in this next year with the CBA and the idea that most of the league will go into free agency next year once the new CBA is signed, I don't know that it matters. I mean, you can get a great draft pick, or you can get a star. And which one, and which one ultimately is going to be more valuable to your franchise. And so I think that, I think the timing is really interesting because of this whole CBA arrangement, because I think, if you're thinking about a traditional sort of expansion game plan, not that you're not winning, but that you're not probably going to be near the top of the league standings. You're going to be in position for a great draft pick. You start building through draft picks and good young talent, and they don't have to do that. They don't have to, what they have to do is, play really well, make this a destination where players think that they want to be, because they like the way they like everything about this. They like the branding. They like the full loud, arena. They like the separate practice facility. They've converted the Warriors' old practice facility in Oakland to a Valkyries only facility. It's beautiful. It's not right next to the arena, but it's a bridge. It's a quick bridge right away. It's, they're putting the pieces in place in a really unique time. I think it'll be really interesting for Toronto and for Portland to come up behind them and see how much of what Golden State is doing is a model for them, or how much of what Golden State is doing is more of an anomaly in the sense that they have this Warriors investment. They have this particular timing with the CBA, with free agents, because, Portland and Toronto are going to come up behind, and all those stars may scatter to franchises for free agency. But my guess is it's going to be highly unlikely they're going to choose one of the two new teams, because they don't know what their game plan is, right? But Golden State is positioning itself beautifully to have some of those star players choose Golden State. So, for the long-term building of this franchise, I think going first is super beneficial to Golden State. And I think that the ownership team and the structure they've put in place just really lends them to very quick success.
I don't feel like this gives me the sense of like lightning in a bottle, that like this is just like one hit wonder universe. I don't think that that's it. And for me, it seems as though, especially watching interaction, and you see so much more of the behind the scenes because you're there, but I think a lot of it starts obviously with the top down from your ownership and the front office, but you have to have a quality person that's going to be on that bench in that head coach chair. And it seems as though someone who came with great experience from Las Vegas, and Natalie Nikasi, understanding you got to build that it's not going to happen overnight. You put pieces together. They've had a strategy. They've done that. This is a team that's won 5 out of their last 6. This is not just happening because. What is it you think about her and maybe her past experiences she's brought to Golden State that are resonating and working?
So she has NBA experience. She worked with Becky Hammon in Las Vegas, as they won championships. So she has NBA experience. She has championship experience. And I think she also just sort of has this innate sense. I mean, we're talking about 5'2" point guard from UCLA, right? But there's this, I don't know, I'm going to say, and we always do this with young players, there's this scrappiness. There's this scrappiness about the way that she seems to coach. She wants, from 1 through 12, she wants everybody to be able to play. They have really good depth. She's got them sort of, trained up in the ways that we're going to play as a Valkyries team defensively, the way we're going to push that, they recruited players with a lot of athleticism. They recruited some positionless players who are right now in Eurobasket, but when they come back, you've got, they're winning games right now, and they've got Temi Fagbenle and Janelle Saloon and Julie Van Loo. Like, these players aren't there, and she's gonna bring them back. Yeah. And that'll be a interesting reintegration especially if they hit a groove. But there's this, there's just this sort of, like, I don't want to call it a system, because I don't think they're running a system, but I think that what they're running is, here's the way we want to play. You have to play the way we want to play. And, somebody like Kayla Thornton, who was a role player in New York and has come out and she is the go-to, right? And Veronica Burton. And I gotta be honest, I didn't know a lot about Veronica Burton and what she could do, but what a heady guard she is, and and Monique Billings, again, role player who's played on 3 different teams in her WNBA career, coming here. And now with like Temi gone and Saloon gone and whatever, she's getting a bulk of minutes and she's making the most. I mean, Temi said before she left, we're a team full of 6 women, like 6 players. Tiffany Hayes was the 6th player for Vegas, right? And, last year. And like, this is just it's a sum of the parts team, which I actually think works really well when you don't have, when you're not the New York Liberty or the Minnesota Lynx or the Phoenix Mercury, where you've got sort of these like high profile stars. How can you be a sum of the parts team? By putting together a team full of hungry people who want to win and want to play to something. Plus, I think there's just a lot to be said, at least in this first year, that they all feel like they're part of this startup. Like there's a very kind of tight bonding around this experience they're all having together.
Yeah. And that's ironic because you're in the tech world, which has been built by startups and all of the things. And it very much has that vibe of how you put the pieces together and you figure it out. And it seems as though from game to game, that has absolutely improved. When we come back, we're going to talk about the last couple wins that they have had. We said they've won 5 out of the last 6. They found themselves on a roll, more with Michelle, and maybe what lies ahead here in the next few weeks for this Golden State squad. Well, a message from our friends at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all of my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete fiscal command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA, all uppercase, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Hi, everybody. Missy Heidrick and Michelle Smith here on Locked On Women's Basketball on a Monday. Again, congratulations to all of the Thunder fans out there. Game 7, it was one for the books, and you can celebrate in style now in OKC. We are talking about a team who is on a winning streak right now, 5 out of their last 6, the newest team in the WNBA, and the Golden State Valkyries. I go back a couple here, Michelle. It was an 88-77 win over the Fever on the weekend. Last night on Sunday, the 22nd, an 87-63 win over Connecticut handed the Sun their 6th straight loss. We put a pin in that because that's also maybe a storyline as we think about this league and where these teams are. But over these last couple wins for this Golden State squad, what has stood out to you? Because it seems like, as we were talking about earlier, a lot of role players stepping up, different ones doing different things at different times.
Yeah. So, you've got you've got Thornton and Burton and Tip Hayes as kind of the foundational pieces and playing around that. And then you have a player like Chloe Bibby coming. Chloe Bibby had some huge minutes against the Fever, and she hit some more big shots against Connecticut. You've got Letitia Almahir, who was waived by this team. She was one of their final cuts, and it was a painful cut for them because she had played great during their preseason, and she's been brought back. Caitlin Chen had some good minutes, and people are really excited about that. And I also want to temper all of that excitement about some of this is those are 3 players they brought back because they have other players who are gone, who are going to come back.
Yeah.
And so, what's interesting is it's like there's excitement building, but credit to those players for understanding that their situations may be temporary and making the most of those situations. But it's that fundamental base in the middle. They play they're a really good defensive team. Natalie says she wants them to be the best defensive team in the league. They rebound well and they're quick and they give other perimeter players trouble on the other end. I mean, they held Clark without a three for the first time in her, a second time in her pro career.
Right.
And then Clark didn't shoot particularly well against Vegas, right? Like it's just a really interesting mix of people who are getting their shot
Yeah.
and they're taking their shot.
Yeah.
And how all of that's going to work in a few weeks will be really, really interesting to see.
I want to bring up that point just because for those that are watching and listening, because of Eurobasket and that there are multiple players on this team that have gone back to play in that tournament, that they can and will return, that was part of how this works with the W, that they are able to go. They have to be back within a certain amount of time once they're eliminated, etc. So that's why you've seen some Caitlin Chen come back on this roster, may or may not say to be determined. But that also goes back to what you were talking about at the very top, the uniqueness of building a roster, thinking outside the box a little bit, knowing that when you're first when you're the newest kid on the block for the first time since 2008, you got to build this and it's going to look a little bit different. Seems as though they're managing that though pretty well and finding success.
And I think what an interesting model it is. I think it's a model. I don't know how else to put it. I think it's, you determine as a front office staff how you want to play in a situation where you're going to be plug and play. You are going to plug in role players. You are going to plug in people who are going to get the first big minutes of their career. You are going to plug in signees while you have other people who are gone. But this is the way we play. So it's not running an offense through anybody. It's not saying, we have Asia Wilson or Nafisa Collier or Brianna Stewart or whatever, and our offense or our thing runs through that star. This is not what this is, right? But it's just a really interesting model. And it feels a little like some of these teams in the W who are not playing really well right now ought to be looking at a model. I'm just saying.
100%. With that said, this is a Valkyrie squad that has put themselves sitting today in playoff contention. I mean, there's not many people that probably would have thought that when this all starts. So, expansion teams, it's going to be a struggle. All of the things, everything we kind of assume is going to happen. Are you the Dallas Mavericks and you're waiting for the number 1 pick and Cooper Flagg to come and rescue you? Just as Dallas was waiting for Paige Becker.
Are you the Dallas Wings waiting for Paige
Becker? Are you waiting for Paige Becker to come and rescue you? But again, this might be actually the best opportunity for when we think about the landscape of the league right now. This team has a real chance to put themselves in the playoff picture and be in this conversation from now until August. Not many people would have thought that. I was one, to be honest.
No. And I would posit that they are right now, the team I see is better than, not just playing better than. This team is better than Chicago. This team is better than Dallas. This team is better than Connecticut. This team is better than those teams at the bottom of the league who are playing. So we've very quickly gone from, isn't this great, to they were a favorite last night for the first time in franchise history, and then they blew Connecticut out. They're better than some of the teams that are playing in the league right now. They just are. And so it's going to be we're going to very quickly move to the point of, this sort of, I don't know, this pleasant surprise about what they could accomplish to I'm already at the point where they should beat Connecticut. They're better than Connecticut. They should beat Dallas. She was not happy to go on the road and lose that game at Dallas because I think she thinks they're better than Dallas. Or, they might be better than Washington. They are they're legitimately better than some of these teams. And so it's, now we're going to get to, these are games you should win because you're better than them. And like that to me, like that's it right there, is you in 13 games, you have built an expectation that you are better than some of the teams that play in this league. And those are games you should win.
It's the model. It's the blueprint. No doubt about it. And with 18,000 fans packing the stands, got to be honest with you, that's going to become a pretty darn tough place to play over the month of the end of June and into July. I don't think a lot of teams are going to want to go to Golden State real bad to have to play there.
No, but a lot of players are going to look around and go, this would be cool.
I like this. This is awesome. Yeah. Why wouldn't it be, right?
Right.
All right, my friend. I know everyone can find your work over at thenexthoops.com, covering this Valkyrie squad in game, all sorts of other stories. Where can they find you on a daily basis?
They can find me on Bluesky at MaxSmith413. And you can find me sitting in the press box at the Valkyrie games going, damn, this is fun.
Basketball is back. Women's basketball is back in the Bay Area at the professional level, which is pretty darn cool. Thank you, my friend. I so appreciate you. Everybody go and check out all the work at our newsroom 24/7, 365 days a year. We have you covered with not only this podcast 5 to 6 days a week, but also at the Next, www.thenexthoops.com. And thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft. It's a 5-episode series with the most comprehensive draft analysis from NBA experts to college experts and NBA draft experts. Find the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft on NBA Big Board and Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to get your podcast. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Happy Monday. Stay cool wherever you are and come back and see us. We'll be right back here on Locked On Women's Basketball.